Deleted Sessions, May 29, 1978. Good evening. A talk about attitudes. In the greatest terms, you cannot really call attitudes good or bad, though they certainly seem to be one or the other often in your experience. They can be better equated with colors, some dark, some light. But all in all, beyond such classifications as morality, let us for the moment forget where or how each of you chose certain attitudes. If you did not have some trait in yourselves, some appreciation of your own characteristics, you would not have allowed yourself to develop and use your abilities at all, or, for that matter, you would not have been able to form a vital long-term relationship with another person. If you doubted yourself and feared for the basic goodness of your beings, Ruber far more than you, then this doubt was still relative and not absolute. By the time you met, however, certain attitudes were already paramount, regardless of your diverse backgrounds. Though Ruber was a good-looking young woman with much vitality, he had no children, and indeed had been determined not to, for writing was the overwhelming interest in his life. He also needed love, however. Though you were in your 30s, you had not married, and your sex life was rather controlled. You both had at that point decided not to concentrate upon family life. You had furthermore decided, and separately before you met, to avoid conventional long-term relationships in the world of business. Neither of you wanted conventional jobs, regardless now of any prestige or security they might bring. In that regard, you saw yourselves as like spirits. You believed in the importance of developing your own abilities, because those abilities so naturally manifested themselves as strong elements of your personalities. You both felt that the development of those abilities must be protected, that the need for financial security led you into full-time work on a long-term basis. You felt that you must, to some extent, allow your love for each other to nourish those abilities, and yet not jeopardize them lest it lead you into parenthood. You felt that you must, to some extent at least, protect yourselves against your neighbors, who, as both of you said often, would take up all of your time without a qualm. Neighbors or friends who you felt would not understand your goals, however good their intent. You must then jointly protect your time. I am describing attitudes years ago, when it looked, generally speaking. Now, I am simplifying, as if you might be swallowed by artistic. You rebelled and became ill. You made certain readjustments. The sessions began. Time went on. You were not selling paintings to any considerable degree. Ruber knew he would not take a full-time job either. You may sometimes forget now how vehement your joint ideas were in those years, against the ordinary individual's prospect of working 8 hours a day, year after year, in the same place, doing the same thing. So Ruber added the necessity of money to his creative goals in a strong fashion. This often stimulated him to new accomplishments. The addition, however, brought with it a new sense of responsibility. Not just to make money, but as his writings continued, he wanted his creative work to be responsible, and he began to discover that others, so it seemed, were all too ready to lodge upon what he almost considered magical inspirational productions, and to follow them with very literal minds. So then his creative endeavors not only had to bring in money, but they had to be good, moral, responsible, for they were becoming part of a body of work. The creative abilities, of course, do not think of bodies of work. They create out of the joy and natural necessity to do so, and their productions also exist in a range far too large to be so easily categorized. Your other attitudes mentioned earlier continued, and the more the world seemed to knock at your door, however gently, and the more the mail came, the more convinced you both became that your solitude must be protected. The attitudes mentioned belong to some extent to each of you. That is why, for example, you went along as long as you have with Rupert's condition. Neither of you liked it. To that extent, Rupert does speak for both of you, and in your own way, both of you rewarded him for creative material, and withheld approval for any tendencies that ran counter to those mentioned attitudes. The same sort of situation operates in millions of families, and the rewards that you gave each other for your creative endeavors were excellent, and worked beautifully. They still do. There is nothing wrong with the other attitudes. You did, however, both for years believe most firmly that your creative endeavors were dependent upon the need for protection from others. The word from time, and even from any of your own characteristics that did not seem to fit into that overall pattern. When Rupert really became worried about becoming pregnant, he simply stopped having his period, and that took care of that. When, as time progressed, the need for constant decisions to speak here and there, to see thus and so, to do housework or write, or whatever, Rupert simply began to cut down on the body's availability to action, and he felt that that would take care of that. You were each for some time relieved. These are patterns of attitudes of long standing, and at different times, as Rupert improved, and new decisions came to mind, he backtracked, and you largely went along. With the continuation of the physical restraints, other problems grew, and Rupert would become frightened that his body could not indeed heal itself, and you feared the same. The past failures seemed indisputable evidence. I realize your predicament, so do not think I am being unfeeling. And yet, my dear friends, on other levels, those failures were considered successes. You finally got it through your heads that something had to be done, and something is being done. In the process, you see, your views of life are changing, and that change is showing that your creative abilities, if expressed, will automatically allow you to express your natures, and will lead you into your most advantageous way of life. Before, you did not believe those abilities could protect themselves, but needed you as stern parents to protect them from the world, and even from their own spontaneity. Take a brief break, and I will continue. Now, Rupert felt that you were more naturally disposed towards solitude and so forth, discipline more naturally opposed to distractions than he was. He felt he responded to people more emotionally, and so he took steps to see that artificial restraints were applied, so to speak, for those tendencies he felt could jeopardize not only his own work, but yours. And if that happened, he feared that you might retaliate, either by becoming ill or by becoming eventually cruel to him. All of this meant he was left with body beliefs, so that he believed his body could not respond normally. Again, the evidence gave seeming confirmation, so that his confidence in his body was lessened. You both used his condition as an excuse for not doing certain things because you believed an excuse was necessary. Your attitudes, of course, affect each other, so Rupert looks to you for your reactions. He is somewhat afraid of mentioning any improvements, for fear either that you will not approve of them, or that you will, and then be disappointed on the following day. Your encouragement of his working is excellent. The soreness lately at night will pass, but as he sleeps this week, the shoulder blades and the rib cage and the neck area have all been straightened. The sensations are one thing, and again the bodybuilder has his coach. But if Ruber awakens sore with you asleep, he can feel isolated. In all such cases, some reassurance on your part will greatly help, and often can cut such episodes short. The body beliefs need to be tackled regardless of the attitudes that gave them birth, and your reassurances of his attractiveness are important, for he convinced himself, at least to some degree, that because of his condition, he was not attractive to others. It is all right. You are getting better. Any soreness is caused by the body's new activity. If you remind him of that when the circumstances warrant it, it will be most helpful. I do not expect either of you to be saints, so certainly do not expect it of yourselves. If you hear Ruber grunting, etc., try to recognize the event and try to reassure him, when possible. That is important. On the other hand, he should begin to definitely tell you when he is feeling better, when he feels releases, so that new evidence can begin to more effectively take over from the old. Let him do his walking or whatever so that he is free to just sit and write before or afterward. You follow me. You are doing well, though, and also any change of routine or pattern in your lives within the general context is good, for you need the variety. I would like the hot towels applied, and the obsession, and a fun good evening. Ram asked, do you want to say something about his dream with George Basting last night? They said, I want the hot towels applied. Tit for tat. Ralph said, all right.